Hello, hello. What's up? What's up? It is a new day, it is a new week, and it's time to get social. My name is Kayvana, and welcome to the Introvert's Social Hour. Welcome. This is a episode for introverts, extroverts, ambiverts, and movie theater enthusiasts. This is going to be a really, really fun and also emotional episode about the impact of movies everywhere across the board, but more specifically, the emotional impact in regards to sadness. Today, we are talking about movies that have made us cry, whether it be expected or surprising. Today, I've brought my friends Sabrina and Nicole. Y'all know Sabrina and Nicole, so welcome Sabrina and Nicole to the show. Woo woo.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Um, I thought of this specific episode. That'd be cool because as for listeners, if you've listened to our episodes, we all have three different sides to pretty much a lot of different things. We're like good balance, a good balanced trio. So, especially when it comes to movies that made us cry, I definitely feel like we're gonna have three very interesting and like cool perspectives on what did actually emotionally impact us, especially in regards to fictional content. It also could be non-fictional too, but I feel like most of the time, in my case, it tends to be like fictional content just because that's what I tend to watch more.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm super excited. My first question I had for y'all was like, what what is something that could bring out emotions for you in a movie? Like, what is gonna make you feel something when you're watching something? And it doesn't even have to be a movie when talking about this. Even a TV show, like what does really like give you a oof moment where you really feel it in your chest?
Um, my experience has changed a lot especially in recent years. It's changed a lot, but I find that guaranteed one of the things that almost always gets me is like sincerity, if that makes sense. If I could see like that the hand of the author or the movie, the director, the writer, all those things, like something that feels really sincere and meaningful to the person creating it, it really makes me connect with something, especially as someone who's a creative myself. Like, I'm like, that's what I want to do. So that's something that's always going to move me. And that's one of the most consistent ones where I'm like, oh my God.
I like that. Sincerity is true because you can really feel it. Like they had a
Mhm.
purpose and a message to send. I like that.
Exactly.
I'm the waterworks here. So
Mhm.
essentially there's like a ton of answers to this question for me. Um, but the ones that like never fail to get me are definitely deaths.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's a big one. But less so like the people dying themselves. For me, it's always been watching the way that affects other people the same way
Mhm.
in real life. Like in my life, seeing the way that death affects others, the ones who are left behind, that's what gets me.
Mhm.
Um, family based things is also a very big one for me. Seeing realistic family situations, seeing how family dynamics work. If it's a family movie where things get tense, I'm already on edge a little bit of a like, please
Mhm.
don't get me. Um, and then I love a good romance. Sometimes just a good romance, if it's beautiful enough, it'll get me to tear up. Even if it's not sad in any way, it will get me to tear up a little bit if it's a beautifully told, um, like Nicole said, sincere story. Those are like
Mhm.
Mhm.
my big ones.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, those are good ones also. I like that you mentioned even like romance ones too, because it's not necessarily like purposefully sad.
Mhm.
But it's like a feel good sad. And those are a thing too. So glad you mentioned
Yeah.
that because I have some on my list.
And I know, Sabrina, you've mentioned before that like in recent years you've been not watching as much sad media. So that makes a lot of sense that like other things are starting to creep in and get you because you're like, no, I can't do it.
Mhm.
So then my
Mhm.
body's like, here, what about this one? Oh,
Um, my next question, and I am curious about this, Nicole, you talked about this just a little bit before we start recording, but
Mhm.
who is a person or multiple people who's most likely to make you cry when you are watching a film? Like, so for example, I know there's times where maybe I could be chilling if I'm watching a film by myself, but maybe I watch the film and I started tearing up because someone else was having feels, and I was like, oh my gosh. And it was just kind of like that emotional connection cry out. I could think of a
Mhm.
time um where this was specifically, I always think of the time when I watched a movie with Summer.
Mm.
And I turned around, I saw her bawling, and now I was sad. I hadn't started crying yet, and then I started bawling. And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So that is one of my examples. No one consistent though, I would say, because my mom's not a big crier, my grandma's not a big crier, and they're also not big on watching sad movies or things that they know are gonna make them sad. So, yeah. And if anything, she probably cried while laughing, but nothing else on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is definitely my mom. Like, she is the most likely person in my life. If anything is like even a little bit emotional, she is very much the person to tear up. And when I was a kid, it was always like, oh, mom, like, of course you're crying at this movie again. But as I've gotten older, really, I've been really affected by the emotional state of the people around me watching a movie. And now sometimes I'm like, I can't even look at my mom when there's a certain part in the movie that I'm like, I know she's crying. I can't look at her because then I'm gonna start crying. Because it's just uh it's an empathy thing for me a lot. And those are the ones that have like snuck up on me where I'm like, oh my God, like I feel the energy in the room and then it gets me.
Yeah.
Um, my mom is a big crier. My mom is a bigger crier than I am. So at this point, I'm very used to it. But sometimes she'll still get me. But probably my sister and then my best friend. I haven't gotten to see my best friend in person a lot. So when we do get together in person and we're watching something, I think that that also possibly
Mm.
adds to it is that it's that emotional space because we used to watch like everything together. But if I look at her, I know I will cry. So I do the same thing. I'm like, no, you're not here. I'm watching this by myself. No, no. And I'm still probably going to cry anyways. But my sister cries or tears up because I don't think Cassandra really like cries. I don't think I've ever seen that in a movie. But Cassandra will tear up so rarely, less rarely now, that I don't like it and it
Mm.
gets me and I'm
Mm,
just like, oh my God. And so I'll be making fun of them for sure, but also crying at the same time because it happens so, so rarely.
Mhm. And sometimes you have to make fun of them to keep the tears back from yourself. You're like,
Yeah,
haha.
exactly.
yeah,
Yep.
there's
Yep.
a side. That's funny. That's also like a good breakdown of like sibling appreciation. It's like, okay, you're crying, oh my gosh, but also like, hee hee, look at you.
Yeah. I
It's a good
mean,
balance.
they get to do it with me all the time because it's ridiculous how much I cry in movies and anything. So it's only fair I do it back on like the two times I can.
When you can, exactly. Okay. With the emotional impact of movies, I am going to start asking us what those movies are for us. Um,
Ooh.
as we talked about, it could be for various amount of reasons, whether it's sincerity, romance reasons, death, etc. And so I do want to ask based off of what you kind of expected going into the movie, of and we'll go in that order of things. So for example, the first question I'm going to ask is movies that made you cry that you slightly expected would make you emotional. What were some of those? And I can start off a little bit first. So, like for example, oof, like I'll start off. So this was Death. This one was a death one. But it was also based on a true story. So I already knew it was gonna eat me up. It was close to home, and it took me years to finally watch it because I knew it was gonna tear me apart, and it did. But Fruitvale Station with Michael B. Jordan, man, oh man. And also by the way, listeners, I forgot to say, spoiler alert. It's kind of obvious, but spoiler alert, we're gonna be talking about movies and we're gonna be, breaking down the feels of it all and why we have feels of it all. So we gotta tell the story. But if you don't know Fruitvale Station, it is based off the true story of what happened to Oscar Grant in Oakland, California. If you know me, I'm from the Bay Area. But also, fun
Yeah.
fact, Oscar Grant was, frequent in Hayward, California, which is where I went to school, which is where I grew up, and then also like he went to my school and that was just like a whole thing. Now I didn't know him, but he had, went to my school when he was there at some point. So I had met his grandma and everything. It was kind of crazy. I was like, oh my gosh. And so it took me a while to watch that film because it was already too close to home. And
Mhm.
then when I finally did watch it, it ate me up. But Michael B. Jordan did such a great job um telling that story. And I think I was also willing to watch it because it had years to marinate. And for me to actually see that they did a they did a decent job at telling the story. Because like sometimes when it's like based on a true story and it ends up being a trash like
Mm.
retelling. And so after like it coming out, we heard it was coming out. I was like, okay, like really? And then it's like, okay, wait, they actually did a decent job at representing who he was, representing the issues in place of what happened. And um yeah, it was super important. And well, I once again I think they did a great job. That's one of the movies I also will never watch again
Mm.
because once is enough. But yes, that was one of my movies that I expected I would cry. I probably knew I was gonna be bawling, and that's exactly what I did. What about y'all?
One I definitely expected, and it did get me, was when I watched Tick Tick Boom. One, first of all, because I watched it with my family, and of course, my mom, but also because Rent has a really special place in my heart. Like that's another movie that I know I'm gonna cry every time I watch it because I was really attached to it growing up. It was one of my first introductions to like gayness, if that makes sense. Like what queer culture is, even though it's like people have a varied opinions about it, but it was very important to me in like my queer awakening, and I'm very emotionally attached to that movie. And I always between that like I'll cover you reprise and goodbye love, I'm gonna cry somewhere in there. I just know it's gonna happen. And it's been that way since I watched it for the first time. And anytime I see a live performance, it's over. It's over. I had the pleasure of actually seeing my brother perform as a sign language translator for a local production of Rent, and I was like, I know, I'm gonna cry, I can't handle it. And they did an amazing job. And musicals also are another thing that get me fairly frequently. So I was like, the math is mathing, it's gonna get me. So I was like going into it expecting that. And sometimes the anticipation of it while watching is also a very emotional time. And like knowing that it's coming, there's gonna be something, is just what's gonna get you. And I held out. I was like, maybe I can make it through this whole movie, but it was right at the end where they like do the kind of follow up to the story of Jonathan Larson's life and the end of his life. And I was like, because like I knew things, but just the way that they presented it, and after such a moving story and gorgeous, gorgeous music, I was like, it's over. I'm done.
I love that there's a certain point where you just kind of like give up. You're like, yeah, it's not, I'm not fighting
Yeah,
it.
it's
Such a
over. I
mood.
just let it happen.
Yes. What about you, Sabrina?
That is definitely at the top of my list as well. Tick Tick Boom, same thing. That is one of the first movie musicals I watched that was like a genuine musical.
Mm.
Um, Rent, I mean. And so it also had like this very special place for me. I had been like waiting and waiting to see it live. Didn't get to see it live until I think 2 years ago, 1 year ago. So I knew because the whole story of him passing away before he could even see his accomplishments, like it always gets me. Anything like that makes me feel just like so sad.
Mhm.
And I thought I made it. I thought I made it through because there was just so much. The whole Sunday song was
Ugh.
enough where like
Mm.
it was just beautifully done. It was such a fun time. Even like the parts that were sad were just done so beautifully that I was just appreciating the whole thing. And I thought it was good because I didn't expect that ending.
Mm.
And then it was just me under my blanket crying so that my family wouldn't see me at the level I was crying because that one was pretty bad.
Mhm.
Um, but like the other one, also musical, Mamma Mia 2. That's the
Oh.
one where like I knew the thing about Donna. I knew that. I knew that Meryl Streep had only filmed in like for like a week or 10 days because I'm all up in the IMDb pages.
Mhm.
Um, I knew that they were saying she had died. So I knew that there was a chance, but I did not expect to get hit at the again, once again, at the very, very end of the movie And I literally was in the theater and I just went, oh no.
Mm.
And my sister looked at me and was like, haha. And I was just like, this is not fair because I just knew. I just knew. She appeared and I was like, the crying is going to start in like 30 seconds. But that was the one where it was like, I expected it, but I had been tricked until the very end. And so I'm not surprised I cried. I knew I was going to probably cry. I just thought I would almost, maybe not.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh man, Mamma Mia is a good one. Tick Tick Boom also too. Uh, yeah, yeah. That was one specifically for the reason you said, Sabrina, was I started bawling once the realization caught, like, even though we knew the story, like once the realization caught of like, wow, he never got to see his work.
Mhm.
After all of that, the hard work he put to get there, and we saw his ups and downs, and it was like he
Mhm.
never got to see it come to fruition. Like literally, it was so close. I was
Yeah.
so, it was like a moment of like sadness, but also like frustration. So man, yes, that's a good one. I did want to put a mention for Titanic. I know it's a frequent,
Mm.
but I knew um I had a recent rewatch of it. I hadn't watched it since I was a kid, and I had a feeling I would. I think I was more emotional than I thought I would be because I had already like watched it. I know the story, but Titanic is a good one. I think it wasn't more so I cried for the Jack and Rose moment. I think the whole entire scene where everything is breaking down and those B plot stories that we saw and seeing how they're all falling apart too, seeing certain things fill up, seeing the zoom ins
Old
on the
couple.
children and
Yep.
yeah, the couple and certain workers, it was just that got me because I was like, oh my gosh, like yes, it did kind of wrap it up, not really wrap it up, but like end it off with Jack and Rose. But to see it all kind of literally, but figuratively like go down was kind of intense. So I feel like they did that really
Mm-hmm.
well. Like Titanic's a good movie. After I watched it, I was like, it's talked about a lot, but I think a lot about the special effects of it all and um just like a lot of I think of the production side of it all. And I've talked about this before. Like I always like I like watching stuff and thinking of how like what it took to put it together.
Mhm.
And I think those little details and also big details that they really emphasize also could make an emotional impact
Mhm.
on a film. So yeah, that was another one of expectation. What about unexpected ones? What are so let me be more specific because I feel like there's two ways to go about this. When I say like unexpected, like maybe you knew it was sad. This is the first one. You knew it would be sad, but you didn't think it'd be sad enough to make you cry.
Mm. I have one that's I expected that it would make me emotional, but the point that moved me to tears was surprising to me.
Okay.
And that would be Les Miserables, again, a musical, the
Yes.
2012 movie version, because I was like, I was kind of young when I went to go see it, but I was familiar with Les Miserables and like the story, and I knew the songs that I liked and things like that. So I was expecting, the ending is quite tragic. All these beloved characters are lost, and empty chairs at empty tables is incredibly beautiful and moving. And I was like, if there's going to be a point, that's going to be it. Even though at that point in my life, I was like, I don't cry at movies, but it was surprising to me that there's a line in Fontine's Arrest where Anne Hathaway is just singing her ass off that whole first part. And I was surprised at like how her performance specifically made those lyrics hit me harder. And that was the point where I cried. And I was like, what? I have never had this connection to a character, to this character specifically. And then it just kind of came out of nowhere. And I was like in the theater and I'm like, what the hell is happening to me? Why is
Mm,
this the point that's getting me? Like the tragedy is just beginning, my friends. But
yeah.
that was a part where I was like, whoa, like, wow. And I think also the theater experience affected that too, of like being much more immersed than like listening to it on your headphones or something like that, and seeing the emotional performance as well as hearing it and being fully immersed in it is, I think, what was really got me in the end, but it was unexpected for me.
Yeah. I haven't watched Les Mis, but I based off of what I've seen, I can see where you go from that because I it doesn't give me a happy vibe story. I literally don't
Oh,
know much
it's
about it.
literally called The
The
Miserables.
Miserables.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I maybe one day I will. Maybe it's one of those movies that I know will be like really sad, but I haven't watched it yet.
Mm,
Sometimes
yeah.
I
it's
don't know.
like cathartic. You're like, okay, I kind of feel like I'm in the need for a good cry. I know this one's very sad. Let me just watch it and let's see
Hmm.
if this happens. Sometimes that's how it goes.
Hmm.
Okay. What about you, Sabrina? What is a movie
Um,
or multiple that you knew would be sad or emotional, but still unexpected?
I knew going into like one day that that would be sad just because of the way it like opens. But like I was not prepared
Mm.
for how truly like comatose I would be afterwards. Like the feeling you get when you've seen something and you just like
Mhm.
can't move, you can't really do anything. It's just sitting with you. That's what happened after I watched one day. Um, because I thought it was gonna be a Love Rosie type of thing. Because Love Rosie also follows like a them like when they're this old and then this old and then this old, but like it's a good vibe. At the
Yeah.
beginning, I was like, okay, this looks like it's not gonna be as happy. But to see that ending set up, to see that they like struggled for so long to get together and that the joy they had together was so short lived, and the way that like oh I just kind of sat there and I think I texted someone. I don't remember who I texted. I was like, have
Mhm.
you seen this movie? And they were like, yeah, did you just watch it? I went, yeah. They're like, why would you watch it? I was like, because I didn't
Why?
know. I didn't know. Same thing happened with The Time Traveler's Wife recently. I was watching it with my dad
Yeah.
because like or not maybe recently. I think it's around the time the TV show came out.
Mhm.
And I was like, I would rather watch the movie first and then watch the TV show. So I put it on, and my dad's watching it with me, and I had no idea that it was sad like that. I thought it'd be sad in the regular time travel way of like things just not working out. I did not know death was involved. And so it happens. And my dad looks at me and starts laughing because I'm like holding it in. And he's like, I thought you knew what this movie was about. I was like, no, I thought it was time travel. I thought I was like having a crisis on the couch
Mhm.
because like you said, I have been avoiding sad things since like the pandemic, since quarantine. I've just kind of been like, I don't really want to consume a lot of sad stuff. If I do, I want to walk into it with my eyes wide open, knowing it's going to get me. That one got me. And I did
Mhm.
not expect it to. And that made it worse, is that I thought it was going to be a fun time, maybe a little awe,
Oof.
but not heart wrenching
Hmm.
as they watch him die. That's what they do.
Yeah.
That's what they do. They just look. And I'm like,
Yeah.
hello. So,
Oof. You just brought them back up because I also watched The Time Traveler's Wife within the time frame of the show coming out, canceled now. But
mm-hmm,
I knew though, I knew it was sad. I didn't think it was happy, so I'm sorry about that. I yeah, I knew it was sad. I think I always kind of no similarity, but in my brain, like growing up, I always connected it to like the P.S. I Love You movie, which I've never watched by the way, but I always just like,
less
oh,
sad.
okay.
It's less sad.
Oh, really?
It's so much
Okay.
less sad. I was
Okay.
shocked. I only got a little like, aw. I didn't like cry cry.
Oh, okay. See, yeah. Well, now I know I'm wrong. But yeah, no, Time Traveler's Wife made me bawl as well. I think it was specifically how it went down of the fact that it was literally completely accidental, and then it was literally her father who did it in a different timeline, by the way. So it's
With
very
him
tragic.
there.
Yeah, with him, yeah, it was just very tragic. Um,
Oh.
and then one day was on my list as well, so I'm just gonna add on to it. I think that was my unexpected cry. I didn't prepare for sadness in the beginning, like you said. Um, I thought it was gonna be very like indie romance. Yeah, maybe not a happy ending, but I
Mm-hmm,
didn't think it would like give us a little 360 turn. I think it was the way it happened. Like
mm-hmm.
they really went for the audience shock effect. Because she's just cruising on a bike, cruising on a bike, and then Yeet. So I feel like that was really disrespectful.
It
Um,
was. It
it was very
absolutely deserves better.
disrespectful. And I literally remember watching it like shocked, like I couldn't say anything. I was like, what? Like,
Hmm.
uh, what does that, what did I just see? This is a plot twist. This is a fake out. Somebody's dreaming. Flippy flip. I was just waiting for, I was waiting for the one of those things. So that one got me because it was shock. And then afterwards I was like, ah, and started crying. So that was my big unexpected cry.
Mm.
Um, that I thought would still have a decent ending. Like I didn't think it would end in
Hmm.
death. Um, in regards to other ones, unexpected but happy ones. I did want to mention it tends to be a lot of Pixar stuff, which I feel is kind of
Mm.
rude. Because, for me, I personally don't really like to cry. I feel like I have all of us. I'm the middle between Sabrina and Nicole, I think, which tends to be the case. I feel
It
like this.
usually is.
Yeah. Where maybe I'm like Nicole in the sense where I don't want to cry, like, oh, like ew, but then at the same time, like I'm gonna cry and get emotional. So I'm gonna throw out some, for example, Up, of course, Up
Oh
in the
yeah.
beginning.
I knew that was going to be on this list.
Yes, Up for sure. That one. And also too, I didn't cry at the end, but it does give that really like heartfelt, like what we talked about, like feeling in your chest, that emotional feeling of like having everything kind of um like I don't know, in a way like having Carl's like heart be a little bit more filled after losing like the love of his life and things a little bit back into place. Um Purely with these accidental moments, Russell coming in and just different things like that. It was just really, it was like one of those like life um cute moments, impactful moments. Elemental, that was a recent watch.
Mm.
A stupid cry,
Ooh,
might I add. I feel like it was a super cry for me. And the reason why I almost cried, no, I didn't almost, I did, but I was trying to fight it. It wasn't a ball cry, but I was like tearing up when they tried to make it seem like Home Skilly Biscuit was gonna die. And I was like,
that's
no,
the part that got you?
that is the part that got me. That is the part that's why I said it's a super cry. I acknowledge it. I acknowledge it. But the end was also, but at that point I was, yeah, yeah. It was a lot. That movie was a lot, but it was good though. It's one of those like that's why I like Disney Pixar movies because yes, they're for kids, but they also make sure like a lot of those messages are things that adults are the ones who are gonna
Mhm.
understand. So I liked it. It was good. Soul's a good one too. It didn't make me cry, but it was
Yes.
like an emotional one. Yeah.
Mm.
You were
What
crying as
about
he
you?
was, they were saying the half a butterfly, the story of the man. You were crying with him. That was really cute. I actually really like that.
Mhm.
Um, for me, I think it categorizes in this because it is technically not sad. It is technically a good ending. But the movie that has gotten the biggest emotional reaction out of me ever, my whole life, is Encanto.
Mm.
Mm,
So for me, it's right up there in the Disney category, not Pixar.
yeah.
Although Pixar does get me as well, but Encanto. I don't think I've ever cried that hard for anything other than like family members passing away. Fully in the theater, it is Thanksgiving because we do an early Thanksgiving and we had nothing to do. So we were like, let's go watch this movie with no one there.
Yeah.
I am choking back sobs. And it starts with the Dos Oruguitas as I'm watching
Hmm.
it. The minute I see that man, El Abuelo, go down, that's it, done.
It was over.
Mm.
And the first time I watched it, I am not exaggerating in any sense of the word when I say I did not stop crying until the credits.
Oh
I did
no, you
not
done
stop
missed most of the
crying.
movie.
No, I was watching
The
it.
ending.
That's why I was crying. That's why I thought, like, anytime I was like, okay, okay, I'm okay. It was, so the grandpa died. Then it was, I asked for a, I can't say it. I can't say it out loud right now.
Yeah, I was about to say, I
But
see you looking like you fighting for your life.
when, when she says the, like, he sent me you, take me out, just murder me right there on the spot. Like, please, are
Man.
you kidding me? And then to this day, I have yet to see this movie and not cry.
Was about to
But
ask
now
you
it
that. That was my question.
no, I still the last time I watched it was like in November, I want to say, of this year.
Mhm.
So a full 2 years later. Um, I was crying. It's not bad. Sometimes it varies on my own emotional state,
Mm.
Mhm.
but I still cry. It just depends on the area. But what will get me no matter what is the part where they start singing to Mirabel and they give her the doorknob and you're the
Mhm.
real gift kid. Let us in.
Mhm.
It will always get me. I don't know if it will ever not get me. It might be the movie like um Nicole, I know you've said that like your dad's very attached to like the notebook.
Mm-mm.
Um all of those where like my kids will be like, Mommy, why do you cry for this one? And I'll have to like sit them down and explain that I like it targeted almost every single thing a Latina has ever gone through. Or that like kids of immigrants or people who have family members who are still in other countries, like especially Latin American countries, have gone through. And it just does a good job. Even though it's a fun time, it just like whammies you at the very end. So
Mm.
Mhm.
that one.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's what I was gonna ask you. I was like, have you experienced Encanto without crying? Because I wonder,
No.
does that change the experience at all? Um, like when you're watching it, I don't know. I get curious about that. And here, my psychological brain is like
Mhm.
thinking, like when you sit in a movie theater and you've watched the first time, you're bawling over and over again, scene after scene, and then you watch it again and it's the same thing. And I wonder, after every rewatch, does it change at all? Yeah.
It does a little. It took me a good 5 or 6 watches before I realized that Antonio is the one who walks Mirabel to the door at the very end, like she
Mm.
walked him to his door at the beginning of the movie.
Mm.
It took like 5 or 6 watches because I was just like in a state where I was just like hearing and watching, but not really like seeing.
Okay, that was my question.
And
Right.
then the minute I noticed that, boom, more crying.
Ugh. Yeah, I think that that gets at
Mm.
the sincerity thing I was talking about. When you connect to something,
Yeah.
it's gets its hooks in you, and there's almost no stopping it. Like
Hmm.
when you connect to something like that where you both see yourself in it and you like feel like it's been made specifically for you, but also it's been made by people that share your experience, and it almost makes you feel less alone in that
Mm.
like somebody has put to words something that I don't know if I could in that way. And it's so that's the stuff that is most moving to me, of that like you captured us so beautifully to the point where it speaks to so many people, and yet to each individual person speaks so directly to them. It's
Yeah, that movie did it really well. It's a good movie. They ate with that. I'm not, yeah, they ate with that.
It did.
The music too, because Dos Oruguitas, that song alone,
oh yeah.
without the visuals, I don't even listen. I don't even need to know what is being said because the way he sings it is so like you can feel the emotional ties, like without
Mhm.
even like hearing the words and um I don't know, it's just so good. Then
Mm.
along with
Yeah.
outside of that though, every song has a meaning and a piece. Like of course we don't talk about Bruno and it's fun and vibey, but then what does that mean about his story? And then,
Mm.
just so many other things. That's a good one.
Lynn Lynn is a genius.
He really
Mm.
The
is.
man is a genius. He really, really is.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very curious. He's been kind of low key right now. Like, Lynn, what you working on right now?
Yeah.
Percy Jackson.
Wait, huh?
Percy
Oh, well,
Jackson.
Percy
He's not
Jackson.
writing
Well,
music for
but
that though.
he's not writing.
No,
Yeah,
he's not.
exactly.
He's not.
Hmm.
You're right.
So,
He's quite. Ooh.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I feel like it's another musical.
I hope.
Yeah, that's my theory.
Mhm.
But who's to say?
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
and speaking to the like empathy thing, even just hearing you talk about it, Sabrina, and like get emotional about it, I was like, hold on. Because that's the thing. It always gets me, especially to hear somebody talk about how they connected to something. And it
Mhm.
makes me kind of in the realm of like Pixar, Disney animated films, technically for kids that still get you. The another kind of unexpected one for me. I
Mhm.
think I don't know if both of you were there when we watched Klaus in college.
That was Sabrina.
Yeah,
I
Sabrina.
was. We
And
just
that
barely showed Kevon Klaus.
Mhm.
that's right, that's right. You saw it for the first time.
Mhm.
And that's when we're like, again, the emotional sincerity of that, it's like such a bittersweet ending because it's really nice, but at the same time it's very like sad, and like the, as Sabrina brought up, like loss, and seeing how loss affects other characters of the story more than the simple fact of the loss itself is so emotional. And that was another one where I was greatly affected by the people in the room that we watched it with, because I don't remember who started crying first, but once they started, it just rippled throughout the room, and everybody, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. It just hit all of us so profoundly, I think. And uh, because we watched it with like people we were pretty close with, it also had that effect of like, oh no, these people I care about are crying, and now I'm crying, and help.
Yeah. Klaus is a good one. Like as they said, I just recently watched it. And I understand why. I don't I didn't cry though, right? I don't think I remember.
Mm-mm.
But I was like I understand why people cry. Yeah,
Mm.
that was a good one. Um in regards to that though, connecting back to like um expected cries in a way, but also like even unexpected cries. What are some movies that made you cry that you either never watched again or watch very seldomly because it does make you kind of like extremely emotional. So for example, I told you like Fruitvale Station is mine. I know for a fact I don't think I'll ever watch it again. It was definitely a one and done for me. Another one is A Star is Born 2018 version.
Mm.
Um, that was an unexpected cry for me just because I didn't know the story. So I kind of went in completely, blank, just like, ooh, okay, Lady Gaga, what's his name? Brandon Cooper?
Bradley
No,
Cooper.
Bradley Cooper.
Brandon Cooper.
Brandon Cooper. Yes.
That's
Bradley
the
Cooper. I had the I had it close. It was close.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, like singing, I love it. Let's go. I knew it would be a drama, a serious story. I did not know it would involve death. And also the way that they did it was very good dramatically. Like it wasn't like they warmed you up to it and I was like that's not going to happen. I watched it with Daniel and then Daniel's a crier. So
Mm-hmm.
we were in the theater. We were just like I didn't know this was gonna is that what I think it is? And then the way that they had the legs dangling, it was just a lot. So I was just like I don't think I'll watch A Star is Born again. Also, I don't know if y'all ever watched Irreplaceable You. I think it was
No,
on Netflix.
no, no,
Um,
no.
yeah. Um, here's the thing though, Sabrina. Here's the thing though. I had faith. I had faith. So I was like, ain't no way. I was like, yeah, but like when they're like, we're telling you right now she's going to die. And they're like, I'm like, no, something's gonna
No,
happen. You're
she's
gonna change
not.
it up. You're gonna
called
switcheroo. There's gonna be some kind of miracle.
called
Yeah, I know
denial
what you're
and
trying to do.
bargaining, Kavana.
I know. Like you're trying to trick me. You're giving me all the information first because you're gonna flip it around. She still died, and I was like in shambles, in shambles. But those are a few of My Girl. If you ever watch My Girl, that's another one. I always think of what can't see plants, and she's like bawling. Oh my gosh, Macaulay Culkin deserves better. Serena,
Stop.
you're gonna make me cry.
Um, that one I was going to mention is one of mine. I watched it once as a child. No one told me what it was about. They
Yes,
said,
sir.
"Oh, this is a cute movie." They
Oh
lied.
no. Yes, they lied.
Don't. Oh no, because you're. I'm about to bring up how you did the same thing to me.
What?
Um,
Wait, continue. Okay, then bring it up. Wait, I actually
but
don't know.
yeah, I saw that because I was just a wreck the whole time. And you're right, the scene where she's like, he can't see. Oh my
Mhm.
God. I watched it, I want to say at like 9 years old. I don't think I will ever watch it again,
Mm.
ever again. And for me to still remember bits of the movie when I have the memory of a goldfish, and I've only seen it once. Mm-mm.
Mhm.
But the other one I was going to mention that I will never watch again, or that I watch super rarely, is Last Christmas. Because I was
Oh,
told
okay.
by my
All right.
wonderful friends,
That
Summer
was
and
my fault.
Kivana, oh my
Yeah.
God, it's such a good movie. It's such a great time. Like it's
It is
this
though.
and it's that. You need to watch it. No, it's not. It destroys me. It is a good time for part of it,
Mhm.
but it fools you so
It does.
well. So well because it's just so quirky. Like I like watching Nicole watch it for the first time this year. Like Nicole was having a grand old time, but you
Yeah.
obviously knew what to expect because I had already been like, oh, I guess I'll watch it again. I hadn't seen it
Mhm.
since college. So that was what, our third year, like 2019.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It had been like 4 years, and I still halfway through was like, yeah, it's gonna get me. I texted you, Kimura. I was like, I'm done. I already feel it. It's already there. And then the fact that when we were done watching it, it's like 10, 15 minutes later, and we're talking about it, I start crying again
Whoa.
because I said the line and I was just like, how? And then you guys were like, please don't cry. I was like,
Hmm.
so those two are on there. Not doing it.
Yeah.
Valid.
Not for me.
But I would like to say Last Christmas is not on my, as you know, is not on my never to watch again list. I bawled like a baby. Me and Summer, we both watched it. As I said, we watched it in the movie theater. It was an unexpected cry because, as you said, it was like quirky. I thought it was gonna be a comedy, fun, cute comedy. Obviously, we knew based off the trailer. I knew at least. I think we Summer and I both knew like something's happening here. Like I don't know if he's not real, what's happening. Like if you ever watch Preacher's Wife, like Denzel Washington's like a
Mhm.
whole angel, things like that. So I was like, something's happening here. I just don't want to know what it is. Did I think it was gonna be, oh, he died a year ago, you have his heart, and now he's trying to make sure you live up to your full capabilities and possibilities because he cannot anymore. And not just because he cannot, because he wanted to have the pureness of his heart and his soul. No. So I bawled. I also was like, oh my gosh, she like fell in love with this man, and he like also fell in love with her too, but he gotta go.
Hmm.
And now it's just like she got brokenhearted of the realization of everything that happened, plus the fact like, oh my gosh, like this could never be a thing. But also like, oh my gosh, I have his heart and he did this for me and he didn't have to. It was just a lot. But that's why I
It would
say
have
it's
been
like a
yours
cute.
anyways.
Oh, stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
Um, but that's what I'm saying though. It's one of those movies that yes, it could be sad, but I appreciate the meaning of it. So like I watch Up often,
Oh, I
not
also
often,
don't
but
watch
I'll
that
I'll
one.
rewatch would rewatch Up. And it's just like,
Mm.
I just it's a good old time. It's a grand time. I still think it's a good time. But I understand.
Yeah, I think
I
there are some
watch it
movies that
every
are
year.
worth it
Yeah.
like that. I think
It's
that's
just
part of why I do avoid certain movies when they first come out, though. I'm like, I'm trying to I need to hear from somebody who's seen it that I trust. Like, what's the vibe we're going in here? Because those unexpected ones was like, um, because there's one that my I avoided a lot of things about it when it was really big, which was Inside, like the special that Bo Burnham did. It was on Netflix.
Oh,
Because everybody was really into it there, and especially because of the moment that it came out, and it was kind of about COVID quarantine, and it's a little bit more than that for him, but like because it had its really big moment, and people were like, "Oh, this is so emotional." I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna hold off on that because I don't know if I'm ready for it." But my brother's a
hmm
really big fan of Inside and Bo Burnham in general, and so I was like, "Okay, like I'm gonna finally sit down and watch this." And I was like expecting it to be emotional, but I was not expecting the level or the kind of emotional that it gave me, like the existentialism of it, and it I didn't expect to connect to it so deeply as far as like the moment, the life period that I'm in, and like seeing that reflected, and especially like again that like kind of sincere angle of like an artist trying to figure out his shit and going through it and like really channeling it into his art and all the struggles that he documents and all that. I was not expecting that one. And there are
Mhm.
definitely certain songs that I've like, I can't listen to it in a certain emotional state, or it's gonna get me again just from the song. And I haven't watched it again since then because I know if I like really sat down and watched it again, it would get me again. So it's a very like I have to watch it in a certain emotional space, or it's gonna be like one of those comatose afterward. Like I just gotta sit and like think but not think for a really long time.
Hmm. So what I'm
Um,
hearing, Nicole, is that you need a good song add-on to
Oh
get
yeah,
you.
yes.
it's musicals.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
Yeah.
I did not realize until like looking back on my list and like talking about it with y'all, like almost everything on my list includes music.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about this, Kivana, with Daniel a little bit when we did the like musical thing.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like it's just because when you add all of those different levels of performance at one time, when you also have the music, the instruments building off of the same emotions, because even music without words can move people
Mhm.
because of the beauty and the way that like we just react to sounds. When you add all of that, you're a goner.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like that's it. If one medium wasn't going to get you by itself, here, have all of the other ones that also potentially can get you. And it's just so hard when you
Mhm.
add a song. It's just so hard. Also, for people to sing at any level, whether they're good or they're not, that is a level of vulnerability by itself.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Singing is a level of vulnerability. And if your thing was sincerity,
Mhm.
that's there,
Yeah,
got you right
exactly.
there.
And
Mhm.
I think there's also a level of like there are some things that can be expressed in music that I don't think can be expressed as easily in speech. And
Mm.
actually, I was thinking about when we were talking about Les Mis, the first line of Empty Chairs at Empty Tables is there's a grief that can't be spoken. So he has to sing it, basically,
Mm-hmm.
is that whole and it just those sort of things of like there are some things that cannot be expressed as sincerely as you need it to without that added layer of like musicality, especially like when you think of the function of music in musicals of like it's giving more than any sort of play that's supposed to be realistic can give because it's speaking to a deeper emotion. Ah, ah.
Mhm. Yeah. Ah, yeah. There's something like really beautiful about theater just in general. And once again, we could talk about this for days as theater lovers. But
Mhm.
yeah, and it's I don't know, those add like you said, those added effects. It and something with musicals in regards to that. Yes, there's production and movies, but there's something about when you have a musical movie production or something along those lines, like there's a little bit more of an emotional tie with all those little details too. Um, so yeah, so interesting. Musical theater. Um, I do want to what I want to know. Do y'all have any special add-ons that were not mentioned? And I did want to mention a few that did kind of go in with expected but slash unexpected. So for example, Letters to Your Lover, that was a mixed feel. If anyone's watched it, it's on Netflix, Shailene Woodley and team. Um,
Mhm.
that one was more so unexpected, but I had a feeling it was going somewhere at a certain point, but no,
Mm-hmm.
like that was it wasn't even sad. It was
Mm-hmm.
like in regards to what Sabrina said earlier about like oh like romance ones. It was they finally found each other after all of the hardships that they went through, and that one was unexpected in the sense of like I didn't think that moment would make me cry like ever at all. Like I was like shocked that I was crying when I was crying. I was actually like I don't know if y'all ever had this moment where I'm like, what the heck? Like why am I crying right now? Kind of like low key mad at myself. Um and then also Pursuit of Happiness was a bit sad at times. That one gets me. I that's another one. That's why I said it in like mixed up in regards to the different levels we talked about. It's also one that I don't really watch often. And then A Walk to Remember. We talked about this before, but Remember. I also don't watch that often, but it's a really good movie. So I think at a certain point, it's gonna like be up there with like Last Christmas, where I do watch it frequently though, because I still enjoy it. I think I watched it a lot more when I was younger because it would like pop
Mm-hmm.
up on ABC Family a lot. But it's
Mhm.
such a good film. It was unexpected because once again I went in blind the first time and I did not know that that was gonna happen. It was similar to Irreplaceable You, where I was like, she's not gonna die. What's gonna happen? Like
It's a
I had
romance. That doesn't happen.
romance. Can't die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was where I was at. But what about y'all?
Mhm. I definitely have one of those like almost angry, like, why am I crying right now moments? Because again, musical. I've always been really moved by Into the Woods, especially like the last couple of songs, like Children Will Listen, No One Is Alone, those sort of songs. And especially after I in school translated that song to perform in sign language and like connected with the lyrics a lot deeper. And so listening to it now, I'm like, it brings me back to like so many moments. But that was all of the stage version that I had like a really strong emotional connection to. And then when I went to go see the 2014 film version, I was like, I know it's not going to live up to my expectations. Like there, there's so many parts of this that I'm like, I wish were different. And I had the experience of going to see Les Miserables, where like it's always going to be a little bit different and not perfect adaptation. But I was so surprised when this was my first experience of this happening, where simply watching an actor get emotional on screen, I was finding myself getting emotional too. And I was like, why is James Corden making me cry right now? He's like, he was my number one of like, why did they cast him? And yet, that moment he has towards the end where he's lost almost everything and he's like, I'm going to abandon my son. And like the way that he connects with his estranged father, which one of my biggest issues with the movie version is how they changed some of those things, but they had to. Anyway, that was my almost angry, why am I crying right now? Because it was unexpected and I was like, James Corden, really? That's what did it?
Yeah. What about you, Sabrina?
Um, I have like I love historical movies. I do like war movies. It's something I grew up on. Like my dad just kind of was like, "Here, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna watch this." Since I was little, so Schindler's List for me is a very big one of where my parents waited. There are a few movies that my parents waited to show me because of the impact they knew it would have on me, because of also the nudity and the like reality of it. And I think that is one of the movies that is most beautifully and terribly accurate of anything I have ever seen. It's also on the list of like I probably will not watch it until it is time where I think I will show my kids, because I think it is a movie where I'm like, I feel everyone should watch it once. More than once, I don't know, that's up to you. I don't think I could do it. But that one, I don't think I cried. I think that was one of the ones that just sat with me for a while after. I get permission from parents to show clips at the end of my night unit, which I'm doing right now, and I show them a tiny clip, an appropriate clip, but a tiny clip from two different sections of the movie. And last year is the first time I did this, and my students just kind of sat there. And even though we'd read a whole memoir about the reality of it, it didn't click until they saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them said, like, we were reading it and it was sad, but to see it and for you to tell us that is actually what happened, to see it compared with Ellie saying, this is what happened, and then seeing it, they were like, wow. So for me, that one always sits with me. When I watch those two episodes, or those two clips, I give myself the day. I'm like, I'm not doing any kind of work, because even just like the clips sit with me. So that one is one that's just always like resonated. It will always. It's also in there. I will not be watching it very often ever. Um, One of the ones for me that I was a little angry that got me, I think Set It Up got me the first time I watched it.
Mm.
I don't remember what part it was, but I do remember crying and being like, what am I doing? This is like super, super funny and not sad at all. But it was something with Harper, because I adore her and I love her. And I think she's a very accurate representation of a 20 something year old who is put together in a sense, but also a complete mess.
Mm-hmm.
Like she has a job in the industry she wants. It's just not the job she wants yet. She's like in shambles in her like personal life. And I think it's that, like Nicole brought it up a little bit with Inside. Things now as I get older that kind of accurately depict different parts of being 20 something. And I'm sure when I'm older, being 30 something, that gets me more for the same idea of like I'm resonating with it and like I understand maybe just tiny little parts, or I'm just a little like scared of like what if this is what's going to happen kind of thing. So that one also is with me. And then it's not a movie, but I do feel like miniseries are kind of movies. So I have to mention From Scratch,
Mm.
Oh,
which tore my soul apart.
yeah.
tore me apart. But that one I walked into knowingly.
Yeah.
I knew. I knew. You know from like the first episode or two, and at the end of the first episode, when you see him so in love with her, and you're like, no love like this can exist. I cried a little. And then I was like, oh my God, this is gonna hurt me so bad.
Mm-hmm.
So bad, because there's no way this man is making it.
Nope.
Yeah,
So
those are
Yeah.
the hard ones. I have
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
another shout out that is less one that has made me emotional, but I accidentally uh surprised somebody with how emotional it was. When I was taking a queer media class, we did one of our assignments was Brokeback Mountain, and so I put it on to watch, and I knew what happened in this movie. And my first experience seeing this movie was my dad put it on for some reason, and he was just going to watch it by himself, and like it made him emotional. And there are very few things that make him emotional. Like Spring, you mentioned The Notebook. He has a really strong emotional attachment to because his mom, it's her favorite movie of all time, and she watched it so much towards the end of her life, and it's just it brings him back to that time. So that movie and I think Brokeback Mountain are like the only movies I have seen my dad cry at, and it hasn't gotten me yet. I think because I'm prepared for it. But when I put it on to watch during school, knowing what was coming, my roommate Lauren was like, "Oh, I'll watch with you. I've like heard of this movie. I know it's a gay movie. Let's watch it." And she did not know what that movie was about. And
Oof.
that she was like, I was just like watching it because I had seen it, and then I turned to look at her towards the end, and she is just silently bawling. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh no. And it was like, did you know what this movie was about before when you sat down and watched? She's like, no. It's like, do you want to go get ice cream? And she's like, yes. And so we went and got ice cream. And that is one that like I haven't gone back and watched it in full in a long time. I think because now that I'm older and like a lot more susceptible to that, it's gonna get me if I watch it again. So I'm like, no, 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 no.
Mhm. Mhm.
Actually, so
Um,
fun fact, I've never watched Brokeback Mountain,
me
but
either.
it's because of the fact that I know it's going to be sad. So I am curious, like, are there some movies, like one movie per person? Is there a movie that you know for a fact, like, I have not watched it because I know it will make me feel this way? So Brokeback Mountain is for sure my first one, or and then just in relation to what you said, but the one I was gonna say was The Hate You Give.
Mm,
That one, I know what it's about. Once again, like in regards to just the things that go on in the real world, those real world connections,
mhm.
in regards to just as well as me, I was just like, that movie's gonna have to take some time before I watch it. But what about y'all?
I'm having a hard time coming up with like current ones that I'm avoiding
Mhm.
because I
Some
know a
past
lot
ones.
of, yeah, because P.S. I Love You was on that list for a bit. I was like, I know what that movie's about. It's gonna hurt my feelings. No, thank you. But my mom was like, you have to watch this, and so she made me watch it, and it was very good. It did not get me because I think at the moment that I watched it, I was safe emotionally. I
Mhm.
was like, no, I refuse. But it was a very moving movie, and definitely there have been times in my life where if I had watched it at that time, it would have gotten me so bad.
Um, I was gonna mention that. I was like, that one was on my list for a long time, and my cousin did the same thing to me. I went to visit her for spring break, and she was like, or over the summer, she was like, "You're gonna watch it. We're gonna
Mhm,
watch it because you're gonna love it." And she was right. And it didn't get me. It did make me a little sad. There are definitely parts that are sad,
mhm.
but as a whole, it's a love story of how much he loves her and the fact that he did all of this stuff. Like it leaves you with more of a warm feeling than anything, I feel like. And so I
Yeah.
was pleasantly surprised. Um, which is the one I always blank on the name because I'm so much like I don't want to watch it. The movie you said, Kivana, that you were like, nah, she's not gonna die at the end.
Oh,
Irreplaceable
Irreplaceable
You.
You.
Yeah,
Mm,
that one's up there. Basically, any like cancer movie is off
mhm,
the table, has been off the table since my abuelo passed away. And I'm like, no, thank you, not for
mm.
me. I will occasionally get like convinced, but as a whole, I'm pretty much avoiding anything that is like cancer related. Or if I know a dog dies or it's an animal movie, I can't do that.
Mm,
Oh yeah.
I cannot do it. Mm-mm.
yeah. I am curious, what made you decide to watch from scratch?
because I did not know it was cancer.
Got it.
Ah.
I
Okay.
did not know that until I was already invested. I knew that he
Hmm.
died, but I
Hmm.
did not know it was a cancer story until I was already in the second episode. And I think if you've made it through the first episode, that's it. You're done. You have to finish it.
Okay.
Um, so I did not know it was that.
Got it.
That was, yeah.
Yeah. Dang. I will say though, on the brighter side of that TV show really pretty much ruining everyone, I feel like I don't know if anybody got any awards for it, but like I feel like Zoe Saldana definitely should have. Like she acted
Oh
her
yeah.
butt off. I don't know if she got any Emmys for it. I don't think so. But like I'll never
I
forget the bathtub scene, like when she's like literally bawling in the bathtub, like going through it. It might have actually still got children to like take care. Like
hmm
yeah. Okay. It is now the time, team. It is the time for rapid fire questions before we
Okay.
end off this episode. So, rapid fire. A reminder, I'm throwing the questions out. You gotta have an answer. To help, I'll give my response first, and then
Okay.
that gives you like a little second or so to get your response. I'll
Except I
go.
like to listen to you, so then I'm not thinking about my response.
Just
Well, I
cut out
appreciate
the
you.
the like 40 seconds of silence that are gonna follow.
Right, LOL. Um, and then yeah, just come up with the answer. Okay. First question. TV show that made you cry. I'll go
Jeez.
first. Mine was from scratch, but I've also even cried for Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist for death reasons. Yes. Also musical purposes. American
I was
Pie. Yeah,
hmm
oh
they saw me.
uh, no, I am a little well, no, I'm not ashamed of this. I'm proud. The Glee episode that was about Cory Monteith passing because that he was the first like actor that I like knew recognized his name that I saw in the news and was like, oh my God, he's gone.
hmm
And so
Hmm.
that whole episode and the sincerity of it again. Oh,
Yeah.
That's the only Glee episode I like.
yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's one of the
Um,
only ones that I can stand to watch still, even though it's so
Hmm.
um,
Sabrina, what's your
for
answer?
me, oh my God, I had it. It popped into my head and then it disappeared. And it was a good one. Oh my God.
In
I
five.
actually had one, guys, and it's
I
gone now.
believed you
It,
because you
whew,
got comfortable. I saw you have an answer. You sat down and you started listening
I
to
like
Nicole.
scooted back, and then
Yeah.
Nicole said Glee, and then I went, "Oh my God, yeah, I like that one."
And then it
Can
went
we come
poof.
back? I'm gonna see if it
Yeah.
comes back to the very
We'll
it's
come
rapid
back.
fire questions, Sabrina.
Yeah, you gotta.
this is not like me not being able to choose. This is me having something and now it's disappeared.
Yeah. I'd also just like to say we're terrible at rapid fire because then we start a whole conversation off of the one question, which is not the purpose of rapid fire. Okay. Next question. We'll come back to you. Song that makes you cry. I'm gonna say Up. Up. It's a song from the musical. I can't think of the name, but if you search Up musical, it's based off of the band. The band has the song first, but it's
Mm.
a really good song. It's emotional, like feel good song.
Mine are easy because all of my emotional movies are musicals. I'll cover you reprise and Goodbye Love from Rent every time. Sometimes just listening to it, I'm like, oh my God. And that funny feeling from Bo Burnham's Inside is the one where I'm like, that was on ban unless you're in an okay mental space.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Sabrina?
Okay, I remembered my answer.
Okay,
But
so
I'll start
back
with
to the first question.
The song I've got two. I've got
Okay.
Inupi, and then I've got Everything I Know. From both are from In the Heights. In the
Ooh, okay.
Heights.
Mm.
I do not listen to Inupi. I listened to it once. I have never listened to it again. Everything I Know, I do listen to frequently. And then my show was 2521. It's a K drama, and I
Mm,
did not expect to cry. And it's also kind of a silly reason. It was just like the dissolvement of a relationship that was just very natural. But because of that, and because I love them so much, I was crying. And my mom was like, why? And I was like, because this is how life works sometimes, mom, and I'm not okay with it. So yeah,
mhm.
that one. 25,
Messing
21.
messing up the rapid fire to add on, actually the TV show that made me cry the worst of the worst was also a K-drama, The Goblin. So that one made me
Mm.
like that one ruined me. Um, we are musical people, so the musicals have been popping up already. But musical that has made us cry, not just one song, but like consistently like putting us to tears throughout it. I would say for me like overall as a musical, it's either Waitress or Hadestown that bring me to tears. Yeah.
Um, you know, my whole list pretty much, but another shout out to oh my gosh, what's the full Natasha Pierre in the Comet of 1812, Pierre's song. Yeah, again, in the right headspace, it appeals to that like very specific emotion. It's like a combination of like being an artist, but also like feeling like you're never gonna get there. I mean, he's not necessarily an artist, but like the emotions within it, I always connect to it. And for Pierre's first song and then Dust and Ashes, also I'm like, hold on, I'm not okay.
Mhm.
Because it's like thinking about like, you know, what do you leave behind when you die, and like, is it, if you're disappointed, was it worth it, sort of thing.
Mhm.
Mhm. Okay.
Um, I have a lot, but I'm gonna go with the one that made me cry the most,
Okay.
which is Finding Neverland,
Got
which
it.
I did
Okay.
not expect. I knew nothing going in. I watched it as a part of a high school trip, and at the end of it, my choir teacher actually laughed at me because I was crying so much. I was like shaking. It was three of us in a row just shaking. We were crying so much.
Oh.
And then
Oh.
I had people leave. We left the theater and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, but yeah, like I'll be fine.
Mhm.
Give me 10 minutes. I'll be fine."
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
Finding Neverland.
Okay. Um, a movie that you know is going to be released within the next few years that you know will make you cry. I think for emotional impact, I do think Wicked will. A movie I have, or even if you have not watched it. So for me right now at this moment in time, of this recording, I have not watched Color Purple, and I think that would make me cry as well.
Mhm.
You're
I feel like
same
it.
vein because those are the two that popped up into my head.
Oh,
For
okay.
sure. Wicked, if it's done well,
Hmm.
Mhm.
I will be a wreck
Yeah.
just because I think I'm just gonna get overwhelmed seeing it on the TV, on the big screen first, and then on my TV always. And then Color Purple, I want to watch, but I also know that that one is not going to be fun for me.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like I don't have a good idea of like movies that are coming out where I'm like, no, that's gonna hurt me. Like, I can't
Mm-hmm.
think of anything besides, like you said, Wicked is
Hmm.
because again, another one I have a really strong emotional attachment to. I think it's probably gonna get me.
Yeah, that's fair. And then last but not least, an actor's performance that normally does make you emotionally impactful. So for me, like frequently I tend to get like very like, and it doesn't even have to be sad, like who always just like pulls me into the screen. For me, it's like Viola Davis, Angela Bassett, um, even depending on what I'm watching, like he doesn't do so much right now, but like I think of like his past performances, Denzel Washington, um, like those are performances where I'm like, ooh, I'm like in. Those are mine.
Um, I'm an Anne Hathaway girly. I adore her. I
Mm.
love her so much. And on the
Yes,
same
too.
wavelength, a Julie Andrews. I maintain to this day Julie Andrews is the only actress if like I could only meet one. It's her. The day she
Mhm.
dies, I don't know what I will probably cry. I've never cried over like actors or whatever dying. I've just always been like, that's so sad. But like her, I may cry.
Mhm.
And I love
Mhm.
her in everything I've ever seen her.
I am bad with remembering actors and remembering their names. They're
Mhm.
most often just their characters to me. But I guess a performance that frequently, I think because of the role she plays, Emma Thompson, in a lot of roles, I've been like, oh, girl, so
Yeah.
you didn't have to go so hard.
Mhm.
Love
And
Actually.
yes, that is specifically the one that made me think Emma
Mm.
Thompson, because her performance in that. Oh,
Have have yet to watch. That's another one.
You're not
One
missing out.
day. Okay, cool. I was like,
it's
that's
It's
the
an
one.
unpopular opinion of mine. I understand
Okay.
that, but you're not missing out.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are definitely pieces of that that I'm like still get me, but as I've gotten older, like looking back in it, you're like, okay, there's probably a good portion of that movie that I could do without. But
Yeah.
her storyline, as much as it's like infuriating, her part of it is really good. And then Liam Neeson's storyline with that is another like emotional one that is very moving. Those two are
Mhm.
kind of the only ones that I'm still like, yeah,
Yep, I
Yeah.
agree with that. I agree with that. It's a movie about a lot of terrible people, if I'm being honest.
yeah.
Not like the fun kind of terrible either.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's fun, but
Sometimes, sometimes.
it's
Mhm.
played. That's one where the sincerity kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. 'Cause sometimes it's like, no, if you had gone a little bit further on like leaning into the terribleness of these people, it would have worked a bit better. But I think
Mhm.
also
Mhm.
it's kind of limited by the time that it came out as well.
Okay. Cool, cool. All right. Well, that ends our rapid fire questions. Thank you so much. I know you made it. You
We
made
lived.
it. Thank you so much, Sabrina and Nicole, for hopping on this episode and sharing your heartfelt watches with us. Shout out to listeners. If you have any movies or even TV shows or other forms of entertainment that you were deeply emotionally impacted by that you would love to share that weren't mentioned or you want to add on to, feel free to share it with us. Um, Thank you for listening to the Introvert Social Hour. Share, like, and follow this podcast. Send it to a friend, a family member, a loved one. Follow me at Kayvana on Instagram to get podcast updates and at the Introvert Social Hour on TikTok. Get some sunshine, get some air, have an amazing week. I will see you next week on the Introvert Social Hour. Thanks for joining. Bye.